Hey, what's up, everybody, and welcome to a rare Monday live. We don't normally do these. Normally, I'm recording the podcast on Mondays, and David and I don't do our live thing till Thursdays. But this week and today, we have gotten time with Stephanie. We were able to. Stephanie's actually tough to get booked now. She's got an agent and stuff, and she's all big time, and she's turning into some legit person fighting for our behalf. So I mean, it's cool. I like that. So we're glad to have Stephanie. Stephanie, thank you for joining us.
Yeah, thanks for having me on today. I think that's my legislative aid you went through. Everybody gets one, so
I'm just saying, it was. I appreciate it. I think it's cool. Even you recognize it. We were communicating back. Stephanie and I were communicating back and forth, and she's like, maybe I should just let this go through my aid.
Go through my aid.
Yeah,
I give up right now. She's so good at the calendar. Let her do that.
So for those of you who were able to make the town hall that we had this summer here in Denver, David was there, Stephanie was there. You probably met Stephanie, or you probably in passing at least saw her if you didn't meet her. I think most people met her. But I feel like a lot of people said, well, what did that really accomplish? And I feel like now we're at a point where it's like we can claim something. We can claim, well, it did accomplish something. And you guys should be doing the same. And like David and I have said many times, we'll help you do that. We can't guarantee you what we can do, but if you are looking to do something in your city, contact us. We might know some people. And if not, we'll still help you. We'll do what we can to get this out there. But yeah, Cray Cray was there. So I know Cray Cray met. Yeah, I know she met Steph. So did we accomplish anything? So I'm going to let Stephanie take us from why, when we did that town hall, it was because initially Stephanie is a House reps here in Colorado, from the Colorado Springs district. And she was trying to pass a House bill that didn't pass. So that's kind of why that idea of the town hall started. And then David and I said, let's get this. Let's bring Stephanie and let's get some gig workers and let's make this happen and see what we can do. And then it was kind of well, what did we do? And I think that since then, and since the first bill, I'm sure you'll talk about it, Senator Priola, who was part of the not accepting the first bill, is not to say he's totally jumped ship or something, but he listened to some people. We did make an impact. And I guess I'll let Stephanie take it from there on how we got from what she thought of the town hall and how we got from there to here.
Yeah, thank you, Steve and David, for having me on. It's really good to see you guys again. So yeah, I'll go I'm going to start kind of bigger picture about why I picked up that bill last year in the first place, and kind of what I see as kind of our long haul goals in this industry that I think are really worth fighting for. So I came into this office. I got elected 2022. Kind of like an underdog, first time elected official. And one of the things that I bring to this work that we don't have in a lot of our legislatures, and we certainly haven't had before in Colorado, is that I've worked in this industry. I've worked as a third-party delivery driver. And so I know the driver side of the app in a way that I know my colleagues here just don't intuitively have, and why would they? And so it's something that I think we all know from our conversations with people outside of this industry. They just have no idea what's going on. And it's hard to, talking to some people when I got here, they were like, hey, I just learned from you the other day that y'all don't want to be employees. I thought that was the big move, right? Is to reclassify you as employees. And I was like, okay, if somebody's actually misclassified, yes, but we aren't. That's not the dilemma here. They're like, okay, well, apparently I have a lot to study on this. I said, yes, please, because we're trying to run a bill. So we ran a Senate bill. It did die off in Senate committee. And as Steve was saying, one of my fellow caucus members, one of my fellow party members who's across the hall there, was like, I'm not sold on this bill, but I'm really intrigued by the fight that you all are kind of digging into here. And I think the thing that he recognizes that more and more people are starting to is that gig drivers are really on the front lines of the transformation of work that we're seeing in this country right now, right? We're seeing so much more work go remote, on demand, app-based, decentralized from shared workspaces. And so if we don't, this is one of those things where I feel if we don't get this right with the people who are doing it first, and who are kind of like I said, on the front lines of this change, then we kind of risk big tech kind of just making off with our workplaces, and the way that we like to work. and kind of just forcing us all to be on this sort of gamified on-demand situation where we don't have any rights and they don't have to tell us anything, and everything's in this algorithmic black box that no one's allowed to look into. So that was the focus of our bill last year, but it kind of brought together everybody within that industry. So it had rideshare and delivery kind of all into one. And one of the big things that I felt would be more helpful this year and really tackling both of these major policy veins was to split those up. So I am carrying the bill that handles the DNCs, the delivery companies, and then there's another bill that's starting in the Senate that is the transportation side. That's the one that actually Senator Priola is running. So he came out to the town hall last year. I was very pleased that he made the time to come meet with drivers
Which
and
to take a quick
hear from
time out,
everybody.
I got to say that even Stephanie, the day of the event, said, I don't think he's going to show. I'd emailed him. She had and she has the best way to contact him, but she was like, I don't think he's going to show. So I got into this headset that he wasn't going to be there, but go ahead.
I was like, we'll see. I was like, I don't know if it's in his schedule, but I think he's willing at least. It's a matter of whether or not he can make it a priority because we always have stuff going on, even during the interim. But to his credit, he's a smart guy. He's a smart guy and a very thoughtful guy. And we had a number of conversations on the phone as well last year where I was just like, hey, I want to keep talking to you about this. You said you were into finding a way forward. And I really appreciate that. So let's keep in touch. And he's been very, very willing to step up to the plate and carry the bill, which is just, I think, is such a great turnaround. So yeah, we're approaching these in one bill for one kind of type of app and a different bill for the other. And once again, just really focusing on the companies being responsible to share the relevant information with the people who need to know it. And primarily, we're focused on the drivers and the consumers having decision-making time, having enough information to make that decision. And I think this has just been, and I keep hearing this anytime I work with drivers on developing these bills, and when we all came together last year, there's a lot of discouragement. There's a lot of discouragement that most of us, I think, when we got into this work, kind of felt like, all right, we've tapped into something here. Technology is actually working for me. It allows me to work for myself. It allows me to be flexible and kind of come and go with what work I want to be doing. I can kind of run my small business with 30 hours of the week, and then drive for another 10 or 20 and still pay my rent, and that's great. But increasingly, it seems like the companies are kind of figuring out how they can kind of sink their teeth into our labor and extract more and more and more from it and give us less and less in return. And it's such a familiar pattern, right? We've seen this, and this was the first machine age, right? Industrial revolution brought a lot of the same challenges. On the one hand, wonderful new opportunities, incredible new productivity, technology delivering all of these incredible results, and also creating some new abusive situations that have to be reined in. And I think we'll do it. It's just going to be hard.
AI too. It's in a perfect storm with AI, so it's really a mess.
Yeah. But I think too, we've got to believe that if enough of us recognize that that's not fair and demand better for ourselves, we can do things. We can do big, hard things. We have to be able to, right? Every working people who came before us for generations beforehand, had to put up a fight because, really powerful entities don't just share and do what's right. Sometimes without somebody standing up to them.
So Steph, can I ask something practically is how did this go? So from my perspective, it was we were at this event, Senator Priola showed up and he was like, I'm here to listen. And I very much like that. At first I was a little disappointed that he wasn't going to talk. Then I was like, you know what? He's like, I'm just here to listen. That was awesome. And during the event, I think one thing he said was basically I just didn't know that much about this issue, right? I'd made a decision, but you guys are adding some perspective. So to me, that was sort of this beautiful moment of I'm here to listen. I didn't realize this. I got smarter about the issue. I feel like that's rare in today's world, right? So to me, that's just sort of beautiful thing. So he then leaves the event, fast forward to now, there's this bill, I guess I have no idea how this works.
Also add in there, David, that it was a Saturday. It was a Saturday. I mean, guys, most congressmen aren't going to go out of their way on a Saturday for you. I'm just saying.
But how does it work, Steph? Like, how's the sausage made a little bit?
Right. Well,
Or
so
do
I
we
will
want
say
to know?
something about state legislatures in particular, and I'll always advise people to like don't consider your state house anything like on par with U.S. Congress. That
Mhm.
is a dysfunctional organization that doesn't get anything done. In my assessment of things, state legislatures tend to be far more productive, intentional, and able to take action on major issues. And I think most people, once they start to pay attention to their state legislatures at all, find that that's where most of the governing in this country is done. That's where most big decisions end up being made. So, um,
I was going to add to that exactly. Like, I mean, to be honest, they can set federal regulations, but really it's up to the states to decide to follow, tweak them out, whatever. So
yeah,
this is again is why it's important that figure out what's going on in your state. I'll try and help you guys, even if you got ideas about what might be going on. We'll look into it because it is time to fight. Politicians are listen. It's that time of year. That's why this is a good timing too. Politicians do listen right now. I mean, they should all the time. They do, but they should listen right now very hard.
yeah, no, I for sure. So like I think one of the things that isn't usually visible to the public, not that a lot of people, again, not a lot of people keep a close eye on their state house. So, but one of the things that's not often visible to the public is kind of this, this like background of advocacy and lobbying energy. And I'll just say like lobbying with a lowercase l is a pretty innocuous thing. It's just people talking to government leaders to ask them to do something or not do something. And there's, certainly all of these companies have lobbyists, but then also like we've got labor and towards justice and like, great like pro worker advocacy organizations that are also lobbying on our bills. So like we kind of have to do both, right? But I think the thing that ends up working out for most big lift bills like this is that we build a coalition with all of those folks who operate in and around the building, and see who we can get around our way of thinking so that we'll have their support on a bill. And if you can get that kind of support for a bill, it's a lot more reassuring, and you feel much more supported as an individual legislator to say, okay, great, I'm going to go ahead and pull a title and we'll start drafting and I'll carry the bill. Whereas like just sort of going on solo and getting something on paper and hoping you can get the votes is just not how it's done. So he's certainly been like really receptive to the conversations that needed to happen with labor and with just ordinary workers outside of organized labor. There's a group called Towards Justice that's behind this. Some other, oh goodness, there's Center on Law and Policy, I think, is behind it. I might be misquoting. There's a number of these kind of like think tanks around here that are really into this kind of stuff, right? They're really interested in, how does the future of work look? How does it interact with our economy? Like, is it contributing to a future where like our work benefits us in our everyday lives and actually makes our families and communities stronger? Or is it just a new way
So
for like corporate America to take all of our money from
I
us?
gotta ask
So
I gotta ask you this at this point. Like, so do most of the people that you speak with who are representing us, do they understand the growth of the app-based situation? Do they really get that? Because I mean, like as we learned at the town hall, he didn't even really get. He thought, and this is my concern is that I think a lot of people, a lot of states, a lot of congressmen, they're getting letters from people who are like, listen, I can't make what these other people are making. I just want to be an employee. And so they're thinking, okay, everybody wants employment model because the only people who write are the people complaining. Right? Nobody ever writes, but like I think I was joking about this with you, Stephanie, before about nobody ever writes bang up job, keep it up, love it. Like it just doesn't happen.
I
So
get a
like,
few of those once in a while. They're
but
very
are
precious. I keep them in a special folder.
but are they like really up to date with not just the growth of, I mean, clearly the growth of technology must be pretty clear to them. And even if they're working with their staffers and stuff to have it explained, but do they really understand the boom of the gig economy globally?
I that's the thing. I don't think people do. And I have found, especially when it comes to, sort of like resistance to technology, accelerating at the clip that it is, people tend to fall in like the camp of either Either like, oh, AI is dangerous and all this other stuff, so like we need to just like shut it down, which is not a thing. You can't do that. Or they sort of have like this misplaced fear that like makes sense in sci-fi, but isn't the thing that's actually going to happen in real life, right? It's like the robot overlord takeover, or they're going to replace all of our jobs, and then we won't have any way to make money. And like there's a certain legitimate fear there. But I think like the scarier outcome that doesn't seem to be on a lot of people's radar is exactly this, right? It's everybody's job getting appified, right? It's not like your job getting replaced by AI. It's you having to work for an AI manager now. It's, your job being determined by algorithm. It's having, all of the good paying jobs.
By far.
Yeah. It's having, all of the good paying jobs that people went out and got college degrees for, because we were told like, hey, go out and get a college degree and you'll have one of the great jobs, like good for you. Those are the ones that are going to get automated. And meanwhile, like we actually do need people to like clean toilets, pick fruit, cook, clean, care for people, right? And those jobs should pay really well.
Toilets, y'all, but
huh?
She didn't mean to start with toilets, but okay.
I didn't, but whatever. You know what I mean, right? Like we need people to do all the hands-on stuff. And that's the thing. Those are things that actually need to be done, but we've undervalued that labor and treated those people like they don't count for anything. Even while like we agreed that this is essential work all through the pandemic, we said, well, those are the people who can't not go to work. We need you to like make food, deliver food, clean things. And now we want to go right back to saying those jobs are disposable. And that's actually the stuff we need people to do. So, somehow we're going to have to turn this balance back around to where like, if we actually value hard work, we should pay for it. And if we actually value essential labor, we should treat it like the people who do it are not in fact disposable. But we're not there as long as people just accept it. If you take it lying down, they'll just.
I think nursing's like the best example. Nursing is just like, oh, we have to have you. We don't have enough during the pandemic. Please come in. People applauding them when they left, and now they're back to 19,000 a year and quitting everywhere. It's just like, really, like, how did things flip that quick? And like, what happens after you treat them that way now, and then the next global pandemic's in a year? Like, then what? Then they're all like, hey, I'm not going to help you this time. Forget this. I don't know. I feel like you're 100% right. There's people respected the service industry more than they ever have during the pandemic. And I feel like not only did they go retract back to how they used to treat it, which a lot of people still treat good, I feel like they've gone way back. Like, man, I tipped you guys a lot during the pandemic, so I'm gonna be very critical, and I'm gonna tip less, and I know we're going through high inflation and many other factors, but I honestly feel like people's attitude is coming out on the wrong people often. It's scary, to be honest.
Yeah, no, that's often the case. And some of the conversations we end up having with, with people who have, from their perspective, and I'll give them credit for this, like it's genuine concern about, for instance, if people are able to like accept and decline. These are folks who don't know how the apps work in the first place, right? They're just not familiar. They're just not familiar with it. They haven't had to do it. Like, oh, if people can like turn down offers and whatever because they see, what neighborhood it's in, or they whatever, like they'll start turning down offers that don't pay as much because they're from poor people, or they'll start turning down offers that they think are like in a bad neighborhood or whatever. Like, we're supposed to have the right to say no. Like that's what makes it independent contract work.
The irony of that was the Uber talking point, right? I mean, that was the talking point we used when I was at Uber, and it's been so effective. It's still working. It's working to this day, right?
No, absolutely. And thankfully, if you can kind of have like some intentional conversations with people who have like a good faith concern that like they're worried about that their district or their community or whatever are going to hurt in this way, we always kind of come back to like, well, nothing is stopping the companies from incentivizing people to go take deliveries that are otherwise not attractive, right? 100%. Like if the whole point is like, we're supposed to, like say yes to what you want, turn down what you don't want, because otherwise we would have to acknowledge that you're like on the clock, right? If you're on the clock, you work for a set amount of time and you have to take all deliveries, then now you're not an IC. So they're going to have to pick one of these, right? We've talked about, having your cake and eating it too. They don't get to do that. And they've kind of been playing both sides of that for so long. we kind of at some point had to be like, hey, listen, like corporate America loves nothing more than for poor consumers to be pitted against underpaid workers, right?
Oh, I know.
Um,
Yeah.
and we're the same people. Most of the time, we're the same people, or at least live right next door to each other. So like we're all in the same boat. They are not in the same boat as we are, and they know it, and they kind of pit us against each other. And we
Look,
need to not
nobody,
take
just so
that
we're all
bait.
clear, nobody's watching this podcast that doesn't understand there's a class system in this country. Like, I'm just making a point.
Oh
We
man,
don't
yeah,
like it, but it exists. I
it
mean,
exists. Yeah. I mean, I'm kind of the school of thought as well that it's almost worse for it to like be there, but we're not supposed to name it, you
mhm.
know? So yeah, David, did you have something else? Sorry, I'm popping off. You guys get me talking about
No,
this stuff.
I've been loving it. I think on my end it really is tell us about the bill, right? So both of you
Yeah,
are
that's what I
running
was.
this,
That's what I
you
was
know.
just
I
about
was
to
about to
ask
say
too.
like
Like,
what's the bill? What is it? Yeah.
And before
Yeah,
she says that, though, I do want to say, like, one thing, unless she's changed it, that I really appreciated, and why David and I really first connected with Stephanie and were doing these with her, was because they weren't doing what some of the other states and cities do, asking for certain amounts of money. Not only do I think that's a bad idea, I think it's a bad idea because you're setting an amount that won't get renegotiated for years, and that amount doesn't apply for more than a month. And that's not the only reason. I just think those are the wrong tactics. I think you first need to get everything in place about what are we, who are we, and what are our rights. Then pay can start structuring. But go ahead, Stephanie.
yeah,
Tell us
yeah,
what
absolutely.
the new bill. We don't even need to talk about the old one. What the new bill has in it. What you would love to see. And
Yeah. So I'll say this. I'm going to talk a little less about the TNC bill, about the rideshare. I'm going to talk because that's the one I'm carrying and I'm most like in the weeds with. And I'm going to
mhm.
encourage you to do another episode and bring on some of our folks who are carrying the TNC bill, either Senator Priola or one of our House reps who's carrying it. But so we really, like I said, we really focused on transparency. We really focused on like driver protection, the right to know things. One of like the really I'll say non-negotiable, not entirely non-negotiable because we're willing to flex a little bit, but one of the things that we really are determined to keep in the bill is adequate task acceptance time. And this was something we didn't introduce in last year's legislation because like I came onto the bill like kind of when I got elected and some of it had already been in process. I said, one of the things, I don't know if we've considered putting in the bill, but like drivers have enough time to make a decision. They really should, like, I don't know, like say it's 2 minutes or something, and we can be a little bit flexible on that. But when you have really limited decision making time and you don't want to lose your opportunity to earn in case it's a good one, you'll find yourself saying yes to things you haven't had an opportunity to think through. And I just don't feel like that's fair to the driver, and it's not safe in live traffic, right? And we're all always, it's on the mount, it's on the thing. We're not driving around with a handheld device. And plus, Colorado is about to pass a law this year banning
Mhm.
handheld devices while driving. So let's figure out how this is going to sync up with a delivery economy that has drivers taking on-demand offers in real time while they're operating a motor vehicle. And of course, we know, we kind of been back and forth with, stakeholders about this. We started out kind of, delivering with Ellen saying that it is a safety issue. And I think, even if it doesn't like cause a wreck or cause that issue, the fact that you are trying to drive safely while you're trying to make the decision influences your ability to make a sound decision. And in my mind,
Not
it's
to
pretty
mention,
obvious why.
delivery gets a minute, rideshare gets about 10 seconds. Just saying. That's even more messed up to me
Yeah,
because you're
yeah,
always driving, so you're in
yeah.
an
And the
intersection. So,
TNC bill, right? Yeah. So
I
the
mean, I know we're talking
TNC
about the other
bill, they
one.
did
I
end
just
up kind
needed
of
to mention that
negotiating
because
away the
that
decision.
really
Yeah,
points out the danger
yeah.
part. I mean,
Yeah, no, I agree. The TNC bill, that kind of did some other negotiations with the companies and ended up dropping decision time, task acceptance time. But we've really held firm to it on the delivery side for a variety of reasons. And in my mind, it's just the complexity of the decision. I think when you're, picking up a passenger and dropping them off, not that it's not relevant, you need to know distance, you need to know kind of whatever, but you're not factoring into that, like the merchant, whether or not it's multiple merchants you're picking up from, what has your experience been with wait times at that place, and do you need to kind of make that calculation? And it's just not. You just need you need a little bit more time to think that through without feeling pressured to say yes or no. And let's be real, pressured to say yes in a snap judgment kind of moment. So.
So, I mean, before
Both
you
bills
move
have
forward,
also
well,
a pretty significant.
real
Go
quick
ahead.
before you move forward, though, I got to ask you. So, what is your new thought on the DoorDash thing now? Then, because now the same thing that we knew they needed to take away, they didn't not only take it away, they added more tiers. They've got the 50, the 70, the 80, the platinum, the diamond, the acceptance rating matter, which, I mean, again, those are factors in when you don't want an order, like you just said, and you only have a certain amount of time. And you're like, but my acceptance, like, that shouldn't even be a factor. It's not a factor of an independent. I mean, I guess I'll let you continue, but if you have a way to play that into it
Yeah.
too, because I know the listeners want to hear that, because that is,
Yeah. And I'll say I'm a little bit I've been a little bit out of the loop with the driver experience on DoorDash because I haven't actually been behind the wheel basically since I came to office, because this job actually keeps me pretty busy. And I know they were like starting to do some of those like tiering and all of that when I was still behind the wheel. And I haven't actually had the driver's side experience of it since they really started doing all that. And I think it's like it's wild, right? It's wild
yeah,
how much sophisticated technology they have in order to get drivers to do what they want them to do. But when we kind of have gotten into this with them, with like, well, why can't you say more things on the screen and do it safely and give them enough time? And, how can you not like come up with, accurate like mileage predictions and things, what I like, and they're sort of like, oh, that's a big lift, and they've made the same argument. David, you've talked about this too, right? Like Uber does very similar things, right? Like, oh, well, our technology just doesn't allow us to do this, that, and the other, right? Like that's just too big of an order, right? It'll take
Doesn't
us
allow it,
years,
but
it'll
we
cost
can
millions.
calculate
And it's like,
your.
yeah, but like we remember like the height of the.
Yeah, so my internet's a little choppy. I was like, yeah, but we can do this real
Sorry.
time against you and penalize you real time if we wanted to, but you can't, What I've always said is like the para app features should be baseline for the apps, right? Why don't you just make it so that how you solve the problem is you
yeah,
just
you
allow
show
people to
people
set
everything,
auto decline. Show people
or
everything and allow them
be
to set
honest.
auto accept
How about
decline.
honesty? Honesty'd be good. So you gig companies out there listening, no joke.
Yeah.
Like, quit hiring people to hide the honesty. Just let them go. Get rid of those departments and just be honest. I think you'd be shocked at what you'd learn.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, I get a little
Yeah,
heated.
well, and I think what that tells me is that, yeah, no, exactly, no, you're right. I mean, I think what it tells us is that keeping that information secret is actually very valuable to them. It tells me that they are making a lot of money, taking a lot of money by getting drivers to say yes to offers that aren't great, and convincing consumers that the reason they're overpaying is because we've been greedy. And kind of like manipulating both sides of that. And it must be worth it to them. They wouldn't pay whole departments to come up with that if it wasn't giving them. There's one thing I'll always trust a for-profit business to do, is to look out for their bottom line. They wouldn't do it if it wasn't worth it, if it wasn't profitable to do that. So that tells me that actually it is a very powerful thing for you to like know where you're going. How long is it going to take you to get there? How much time is it going to take you to complete the job? And do I know enough? Do I have enough information to say yes or no? And I recall during the, like the height of the para wars, right? With like, like recoding and relaunching their app at like 2 a.m. every few weeks or whatever it was. Like, don't tell me you can't recode something in a reasonable amount of time. Like, don't tell me you can't share enough information without violating your contracts to at least like allow drivers some fair decision making capacity. Of course you can, right? If they want to, they will.
Clearly they can, because
If they want to, they will.
David, how many people were on the engineering team at Para at that time? Because that many people were offsetting it all the time.
Yeah, on my end it was on my end it was sort of, on our end it was almost sort of crazy too, because you could see that they'd actually preempted what we would do and would have something waiting, because we'd see the answer appear to like 1% of the driver population, then 5% of the driver population, then 20%. So there's there's a whole system that was going with that basically. So
Yeah.
I think we lost Steph for a bit, but we have Lifting with Larry. Amen to that.
What's up, Larry? Yeah, I mean it's crazy. To me. I mean, these are teams, you guys. These are teams that are not necessary. You know what I mean?
There we go.
Let me.
Sorry, it kicked me out for a minute, but I'm back.
Yeah.
No worries. You're missing that. Lifting with Larry, who's saying amen to that for you. So
I mean, so is your mindset still in let's not add dollar value to this, but more because I loved it so much. We haven't even hit on really some of the things that I loved. Like when we talk about transparency, David, Stephanie, and I all agree we not only want, but as if they're going to call us independent contractors, look it up, guys. You're owed to know all the information. You're owed that. I mean, it's a must. But Stephanie didn't include dollar amounts. But not only did she say, hey, listen, or the first bill, hey, listen, the drivers need to see everything. It was the customers need to see everything. And that's huge. So I think that's still being pushed in this one, correct?
Yes. So there's kind of a few major components of this. I'll say like kind of four policy sections. One of them is everything that the driver is entitled to know. So there's kind of like here's what has to be on the screen, what has to be made available to you in order to decide to accept or decline an offer. And then also like after your block of work, whatever is done within 24 hours, you need to get kind of an itemized breakdown. Like your customer paid this, here's what we paid to you, here's how much tip you earned, the tip went to you, all of that stuff. So that you have a running record without needing to take a screenshot of every suspicious order, which, right, how many of us have done that? Mm-hmm. Right, regularly.
My phone's filled with screenshots that I probably need to delete.
Oh yeah. And then there's the consumer side, right? Anywhere where they're prompted to leave a tip, they need to be, get like here's how much your driver is being paid by the company to begin with, right? Mm-hmm. And then they also need a whole breakdown of, where their money went. Basically, they need to get an itemized receipt at the end as well, right? So you paid such and such for your total order, like, all of this went to the merchant. Here's what, here's what we took for our service fees and whatever. Here's how much your driver was paid. Here's how, give them that whole thing. So that's kind of the other one. The third section is actually a little bit more about safety considerations. So part of that is the task acceptance time. And then we're also going to start requiring them to give some basic directions to consumers about when they've placed an order for delivery. Make sure that your driver has a clear, safe, well-lit path and that there are no pets loose, like stuff like that. Because we've had so many drivers talk about like, why doesn't the company take it seriously that like, we might not be safe when we get there, and the consumer has not really thought that through because it's just, you're not visible to them, right? You're on the other side of the app. We have all this contactless delivery now, so it's just not top of mind for people. And you really should get some kind of alert on your app when you're a consumer that's like, hey, turn on your porch light, make sure there's nothing people are going to slip or trip on, and keep your dog behind the door, right?
But why they don't, though, because they don't want to remind people who are customers that, and this is true, if a DoorDasher, even with a light on or off, trips on your sidewalk and breaks their leg, they can sue you. So like they don't want to put, I mean, they think of it like people know that, so let's not put it in their face. I'm not defending it. I agree, because I think it needs to happen. I mean, I don't know how many other cities are like this. Stephanie lives in Colorado Springs. I live in Denver, but she knows Denver. Most people, even in any neighborhood, don't have porch lights. I mean, some of them don't even physically have them. They're not only out. And I'm not just talking about bad neighborhoods, good ones too. Like older houses just don't have them.
Yeah, and I mean, I think our push has been just sort of like just take some initiative as like the company that runs this whole platform to ensure that people are taking their driver safety seriously, right? Like just don't allow, don't allow consumers to be like, oh, I didn't realize you couldn't find my door, or, I didn't realize it's icy out front and I haven't done anything about that yet, So I think that those safety considerations were important to people. And frankly, like the companies have been really receptive to that. Of all of the things they've asked us to negotiate on the bill, they were like, you know what, we're fine with that. That's cool. We can do that. So that's good, right? It's something we can meet in the middle on. And then the other portion of the bill that I think is really, really important, and I know there've been some amendments coming on the TNC bill, and I will kind of see how this shakes out on both bills, but we're going to require some disclosures to the Division of Labor Standards and Statistics, so that companies that operate in the state of Colorado, who do the delivery service and all that they're providing kind of some overview. And we've got like a really long list of data points that we want, and some of them will be negotiable as we proceed through the process. Proceed through the process. That's a sentence. Kind of giving the Department of Labor and the Division of Labor Standards and Statistics something to work with to kind of assess, like, how is this industry working out for Coloradans, for consumers, for workers, for small businesses and large businesses alike? How is it working? How is it going? Because we can't just keep coming back to this conversation with like, well, who's to say who's actually sitting on call for hours at a time, not getting orders, but being treated like they're on the clock anyway, right? I'm like, well, but we could actually measure that, but we have to be able to, like, have data on the situation. They were really pushing back, I think, a couple of years ago or last year about, this idea that there are some number of drivers that are like seriously out there working for like $5 an hour right now, because they get onto the app with like, there's not really a lot of barrier to entry, and they figure like, okay, there's like this thing, you can go make money delivering food, I'm going to try it. They say yes to everything because they've been told that if you say yes to everything, you'll get perks. We all know that's a scam, but they don't know that yet. And so they end up just sort of working like these, 10 to 12-hour days, and like not barely even making rent still. And like, they really push back against it, like, oh, no, our drivers make on average, such and such dollars per hour. I'm like, well, then let's prove it. Let's all just put the information out there about who's working, how many hours, how much are they actually making. We require much higher standards of people in other industries. We should have the same for folks who do this.
I literally think that they use, I know drivers who do this when they post their earnings. I literally think when they say those kind of comments, they use active time, not dash time. Let's just pick on DoorDash. I literally think they're like, well, no, they make 30 an hour. Yeah, they were active for 30 hours and they were on the app for 60. So no, they did not. They made 15 an hour.
Right. And I think this is the important thing too, though, for us to be able to like have the data and pick it apart, right? Because as you say, like if they're not counting the downtime, then that doesn't count. Alternatively, they could say, and I would consider this fair pushback, like, well, that's what they're making on our app for the amount of active time. What if they're running multiple apps? And any good gig driver knows you run more than one app if you can. Or, are they maybe like doing another job that they can do on the move, and they actually are generating income some other way that's not on this app while they're on that downtime, right? And so like so like, since that's fair pushback, my challenge to them then with this has been like, okay, like if that's the case, then let's get the data. Let's get the data registered somewhere where we can all like look at it, know what we're dealing with. And also, if rules need to change again in the future, if we need to come back at this and reassess the bills we passed this year, then we know what we're working with now.
But also let's look at the data of drivers who do only do DoorDash. It's since they're claiming multi-app, and guess what, guys? Not everybody does. We tell people to because you'll earn better, but there are people who sit on DoorDash only. So we can use that data any day of the week against them, because go ahead. Okay, how much are they making? 40 an hour, huh? How many hours did you work? I was 10 active on 40 hours. Okay, how much did you make? Well, I made $4 an hour. It's like, it's mind-blowing how they twist that, and how the perception of people is very quickly to believe the story of the corporation. I'm just saying, I really have a feeling that data comes from active time. I don't think they ever put it, because of what you're saying, in fact, the multi-apping factor. well, you're an independent contractor. It's funny how you guys loosely use that word, because we're an independent contractor in every single situation where you want us to be one. And then there's a lot where we're literally, and that's why I was bringing up the acceptance rate, the tiers. I didn't even mention earned by time. I mean, earned by time is you can only miss 1 per hour and you'll make 18. That's an hourly, that is a W-2 job right there. I mean, you're not supposed to have,
no, I mean,
we're
if they
supposed to
want
be
to
able to
do it
use the
that way, then
tools
yeah.
we want. We're supposed to be able to have control over the orders we want. They have done, I mean, they've like, I would have thought this year they would have backed off and started kind of trying to play ball a little bit. They're like putting more out there.
Yeah. No, absolutely. Absolutely. And the interesting thing about, I think about, you're talking about like using the tools you want to use and all that sort of thing. Like, yeah, but like we're sort of in like this like brave new world of technology. I know, Steve, you and I have talked about this. You were a freelancer way back in the day before any of this was
Traditional
online.
gig economy.
Yes, yeah, tradition. That's right. And like as long as there has been like wage labor of any kind, there's always been like temp work, day labor, odd jobs, right? Like that's always been there. But this like really takes it to a new level where like every individual job that pops up on your screen is a contract unto itself. That's what really complicates it. I think that's what really complicates it.
Yeah, but like
So,
David, would you ever take a plumbing
DoorDash
job?
had a ruling that was not in their favor some years ago around this. So, go ahead.
Well, I was just going to say to David, like, okay, David, if you were a plumber and you're bidding a job with a contractor and you're like, I can do it for this. And he comes back and he says, hey, I can pay you $50 and I'll pay you at least $5 more, but it might be a lot more. Are you doing the job?
No, right?
So I mean, the point there being, you need every detail. You want to know to the cent what it is.
Yeah.
No.
So I have a question for Steph, which is I remember last year it was sort of transparency, but the person who's ordering would be able to see the breakdown and who goes to the how much goes to the restaurant, how much goes to the worker. So this time around, it's less of the consumer sees the full breakdown, but sort of somebody's able to see the full breakdown, which is the sort of department that has the statistics. Is that correct? Or
well, she was saying before
it's actually both. So the consumer will still get an itemized receipt, but we're also asking for from the companies.
Right.
Oh, that's huge. That's huge. Yeah, I just wanted to.
I think that's bigger than the breakdown to the drivers, to be honest, because finally people are starting to get the buzz that they never got before. Like everybody thought, hey man, I paid $50 for that. You're making at least 40 of that. They did not understand that the driver was making 2.
Yeah, to me, I think that's sort of like the most powerful part of all of it. And I know that's probably going to get a ton of pushback. And I was going to go to like, what's been the feedback on that? I know it's probably not too much you can say. But to me, is like, as I, I'm not that old, but as I get older, I realize there's most problems are hard, but the solution to hard problems is sometimes a simple solution. And to me, this is like the easiest solution to a lot of problems. It's just letting people know what the fair breakdown is. So does it have a chance, Steph? Like how does that look?
Basically, what do you think of honesty?
Our audio got all garbled there for a minute, so I think I missed a couple of sentences, but it sounds like we were in agreement.
Yeah, no, I was saying I think that's like the most powerful part of it, and I think where I was going was like it's such a simple answer that solves a lot of problems, and it's such an important piece. Does it stand a chance? I guess is what I was asking. Like, does that part, will it survive? Is there a chance that we can get that across?
You didn't get it.
I feel like I lost you again with the audio. I'm sorry. Oh no.
No. Are you hearing me?
You would think our would be a lot better in this building, and it actually is not. If there was a question in there, I missed it. But
David, you can put it if you can put it in the private chat, maybe she could read it. And I'll just quickly say, hey, Derek, hi, Ivanaska. Who else has joined us here today? Hi, Ellen. How are you? Hey, Larry. Great video. Thank you for sending that. Hi, Chris. Hey, Dave. How are you? What's up, Thunder? How you doing? And Jerry. I love how he changed his name. Jerry doesn't do DoorDash anymore.
Hey, Ivanuska. We have Ivanuska here too. Always good to see
Yep,
you.
yep. Yeah, but this is pretty funny. So it used to be Jerry does DoorDash. Jerry doesn't do DoorDash anymore. Okay. So you guys, I mean, she's going to come back. We're going to hopefully get through the question David posted. And if you guys have any questions, please put them in right now, because I don't think we have her too much longer. So here she is. We got her back. So you guys, we have about like 8 minutes left. So if you have a question, please put it in the chat. And Stephanie, if you can see it, David, I think put the question in the private chat.
Yeah, no, I saw that. Yeah, no, I think the consumer transparency is actually one of our big selling points of the bill for like I think for the average person who's, maybe doesn't fully identify with the driver's needs or experience, not that they're like not sympathetic, but that it just they don't relate to it. They definitely, I think, are interested in being like, yeah, why is it like, I order some Thai food, it's $40, and like I keep hearing that the drivers aren't making enough money. Where is my money going if not to them, right?
Mhm.
Yeah.
So that, yeah, I think that part stands a strong chance. So, and sorry, I keep cutting
No,
in and
no,
out.
no.
I think
I mean,
hopefully I'll make it 8 more minutes.
So okay, so while we're wrapping this up though, because a lot of people are asking David and myself, emailing us, getting us during lives about like, hey, how serious is this? Or hey, I would be willing to form something in my city. I mean, we didn't discuss this at all, this answer, but I'm gonna just ask you straight up. In all reality, what power would you put behind what we did this summer?
I think it was really helpful for like kind of drumming up some energy around the issue that we can do things at a state level that are very impactful. And again, like most of it's going to be at a state level
Yeah,
because we have, limited reliance on the federal system right now. And that like I think like that coming together of all the different minds around this topic was really persuasive for, for a legislative member, one of my colleagues who, just wasn't in the know before. I think it really like there's a certain kind of lobbying like in the building here that I think is always just lands better for people. And that's when people show up with their lived experience. No one's paying them to represent a company or a specific industry. They're just like, hey, like this bill is coming. Here's how my experience relates to it. And why it's so important for you to vote yes, or for you to reject this hostile amendment or whatever, right? One of my colleagues who sits on the Business and Labor Committee that'll hear this bill in the House. And I don't think he was, like leaning away from voting for it, but he was a little like, yeah, I'm still looking into the bill. I kind of have to think about it. I saw him later in the day. He was like, oh, I met your drivers in the lobby. This is an easy yes. This isn't easy. This is a good bill, right? So like sometimes you just kind of have to talk to people who are like on the, the experiential side of things. And I think if you can kind of get some momentum and energy going with fellow drivers, it benefits the companies so much for us to not talk to each other, right? Like nothing works better for them than for us to feel isolated from each other or to treat each other as competitors, or even enemies, competing for jobs. Like they love that. They eat that stuff up, man. That's how they get us, honestly. So kind of having drivers come together. Craig, you make such a great comment because we've talked about this, but like I need to get back behind the wheel. So here's what happened is that the year that I was running for office and won my first run in 2022, I broke my foot like some number of weeks before the ballots even dropped. And so I was kind of like, okay, well, I'm definitely not driving again for a while. And I just kind of haven't gotten back out there. And I thought I should probably work in some time this year to get back behind the wheel, just to stay fresh and generate a little income during the interim. But we've talked about this, that maybe we should have some people come on a ride along and just see like, this is the pace of the work. This is what, getting like 6 bad offers in a row looks like, right?
Or I mean, would it be completely out of line to take other live streams of people who do this every day? I mean, pick a good one and show somebody, hey, this guy here, look, and clip it up and say,
Yeah.
You know,
I would,
here's
Oh,
how
yeah.
day goes.
I would love like a, hey, go out and work for 3 hours and dinner is whatever you made. You can buy dinner with however amount you made, basically, right? To sort of like,
Yeah.
I mean, I don't know if people would sign up for it, but that would be awesome, right? I feel like
The only way that works though is if it's not like on the level that like the CEOs do it, because we know they're not put in the general pool. You have to be in the general pool. You have to see what it really is.
Yeah.
I mean, otherwise that's
Yes, and they have this whole thing at DoorDash. They pride themselves that all their executives go out and, dash every once in a while. Like, yeah, but also like you're not going out. You're also not going out like dashing for your rent and utilities, right?
yeah.
So like even if you are in the general pool, and as you say, I don't believe that they are. I don't buy that for a second. But even if they were, the pressure isn't on for them if they go dash for a couple of hours as part of the requirement of their otherwise desk job, right? And I will just add this, like, and I thought this was so powerful, and our leadership in the House is actually really great. Our Speaker of the House, after a just cause for eviction bill didn't make it last year. We passed it at the House, but it didn't proceed. She agreed to go visit eviction court with one of my colleagues who's an eviction defense attorney, just to sit in and listen on the docket. And what does it look like and who shows up there and what are their experiences? And it moved her so deeply that she was just like, let's get this done next year. Like this needs to happen. We can't let this fail next year. People need protections against unreasonable evictions, and like that really helps people like go be there where something is actually happening, and learn how it impacts the most vulnerable people.
But can you at least say this to people honestly now that, because Stephanie was one of us, she was a gig worker, she got elected, she's still one of us, but she's now an elected official in office. Do these reps get, like I was talking about in the beginning, do they get pretty much only these bad emails and therefore they're like, this is what everybody must want? Because I guess my point is like, I think it is, and I think I learned a couple things this summer on the importance of my voice, because I used to kind of get into that lost part of like, my voice doesn't get heard. Come on. Do people's voices get heard? In just, I know it's a very loaded question, but in a quick answer, do you now believe that now that you've been on the other side? And she froze. Wow. What worst time.
keep it. Yeah. It's like, let's keep the suspense. Let's keep the suspense.
Sorry, I just killed my video for a minute to make sure I didn't like lose you entirely. So that's, yeah, there we go. The seal of Colorado will speak for me oh, I love that it's sort of like pulsing, like the seal is speaking. This is brilliant. No, so here's something that happens a lot in this work is that we get a lot of people use like those one-click emails, send this form letter to your legislator kind of things. And those, honestly, they kind of fall into the background for us. Just because you're getting thousands of one-click emails doesn't mean that that's how a lot of people actually feel. So I always encourage people, and Steve, you put it so well, like use your voice. Like it's so much more impactful. I mean, be relatively brief, right? Because we get so many emails, there's only so much time, but like, leave a voicemail or send an email to your member. If you're in Colorado, please go to leg.colorado.gov, find your legislator, contact them, your senator, your representative. Well, they're like, listen, I am an Uber driver, a DoorDash driver. Like, you're going to be seeing this bill. The companies have a lot of bogus talking points. They try to make it sound like drivers don't actually want this. Like, here's my experience. Here's why you need to vote yes. And that's so much more impactful than any sort of, corporate lobbying or one-click emails or anything could ever be, because your voice is unique to you, and it's always going to be the most powerful.
Yeah, thank you for saying that, because what I don't want to happen, especially this year, it should happen no year, but this year is a big election year. It's not only all elections, but it's a POTUS election. There's a lot of labor stuff going on. Too many people I know really are, no matter what I say to them, under the belief my voice doesn't count. You can talk to your blue in the face, my voice doesn't count. But I'm starting to see a little bit of traction with people going, does it a little bit? And I'm like, yes, it does. That's why I've been telling you. Like, listen, say something, do something. Otherwise, whatever happens, I don't mean this mean, guys, but it's on you. If you don't do anything, If you just sit there and say, listen, it's just slow, it'll get better. Yeah, I mean, we've been through that. I'm not dogging on anybody for that, but if that's like your attitude, and it's like, that's where it ends for me, but I need this to stay this way. To me, I've put in a lot of work. David has, Stephanie has for sure on this stuff. And to be honest, you don't have to put in that kind of work, but you do something. Write somebody, go see, make an appointment, go talk to somebody, anything. See where it leads you. You might be to the wrong person, and they're like, you don't need me, but hey, let's get you an appointment with this guy. I don't know. That's kind of what I was trying to get at, Stephanie. Is like, do you think that now that you've seen the other side of it, that yes, people should be approaching their elected officials? They do listen. They will talk to you. They will get it from their staffers, who will read it to them and tell them, hey, listen, we're getting some of this stuff.
I mean, yeah, we're not all the same. Some people are more receptive than others, but like,
Fair.
you've got to, I mean, you've still got to show up, and you've got to show up and keep bothering them, right? I mean, I think too, like, sometimes we kind of expect that if something is working, we'll be able to tell in real time, and you probably won't, right? You'll probably go and sit in a lot of boring Zoom calls and public meetings before somebody actually listens to you. You'll probably send a lot of emails and place a lot of phone calls before somebody actually goes like, hey, I actually changed my position on a bill because of your input. Thank you. But like,
but sometimes you learn it.
repetitive work.
You learn those too.
Yes,
you learn
you
like
do.
some of
You
the
do.
words that are used, and you're like, oh, well, wait, okay, I get. And you can
Yeah.
fine tune how you're approaching it.
Yeah. You should expect this is going to sound a little dark, and I don't mean this way, but like, you should expect a lot of little failures. You should expect a lot of little failures before you get to a win. And don't let that stop you. And definitely don't let it stop you that you're not ready. I was not ready to run for office. I was not ready to take office. You can't wait until you are. You can't wait until you are. You never will be. You'll never get there. I got to tell y'all, there are some people in this legislature who, I don't know. I think they would probably lose their job at a Wendy's if they had to show up every day. They are not smarter than you. They're not better than you. They don't work harder than you. They are not your superior. And they
Right.
You deserve to be heard by them. They need to learn from you.
But you even just said what I was kind of getting at. They're not your superior, but we are all bred until you're ready to break free to believe that they are. Like, oh, those are the lawmakers, really? Because I played golf with him and beat him by 4 strokes the other day, and he kind of was a jerk. Like, I mean, it's like they're just people like us who got elected. They just got some people behind them.
And I'll say too, I'll put this plug in for people who can make it happen. I know you don't always have access to your capital city, and it's not always, the time and cost associated with it isn't always there. But like, if you can go testify in committee on a bill that you believe in, or against a bill that you want to have fail, whatever it is, if you can go testify in committee at your state capital, and in Colorado we're quite accessible, do it. It will break that mythology of like the high-ranking professional legislator. You're just sitting in a room with like a dozen people or so who are going to vote on a bill, and it's like that is our prime opportunity to hear directly from people. And we get plenty of the same lobbyists on certain topics all the time in my committees. And anytime it's like actual constituents from the public, I'm like, oh, I'll take notes today. Like, we're listening. So it's a powerful experience.
What should people who support you and people who support this bill, what do you need? Like, what should they do?
Sure. Yeah. So I don't know if you guys have like show notes or what that you can put things in, but go to it's like leg.colorado.gov. There are 2 bills. It's Senate Bill 075 and House Bill 1129. The latter of those is the delivery bill. That's mine that I'm on. And you can kind of track their progress, when you can expect to see them in committee. You can always sign up for my newsletter, and I'll be putting out things about bills regularly, stephanievigil.com, and you can sign up there. I think, like, especially if you're in Colorado, contact your person. That's who needs to hear from you more than anyone.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, if whatever, that's what I'm saying. Like, it took whatever it took me to get there, and whatever it took David to get there, and whatever, even Stephanie, whatever it took Stephanie to get to that point of realizing, wait a minute, my voice counts as much as yours. I don't care who you are. And that is a hard level to reach. I've talked to a lot of, that's a hard thing for a lot of people to understand. I'm not even like, that's not a diss. It took me, I mean, I'm older than both you guys, but it took me a long time to get there. Like, does it really matter though? Like, I mean, I still always voted and did that kind of thing, but like, how much did my voice carry beyond that? And now I do know, I have as much power as anybody does. I mean, it might be a little harder for me to get heard. However, I have as much power.
Yeah. You've got to practice it. You've got to practice it, right? You do.
Yeah.
It's a matter of repetitively showing up. And I'll put in kind of a, not to diss on social media, but like get off social media as much as you can. There's nothing happening there. You're not changing anybody's mind in your Facebook comments. Your tweet is not reaching the masses. Like, you got to talk to your neighbors and the people who are actually like in the trenches with you, and like people who can actually make decisions that you could influence. I
think that was sort of one of the big takeaways we were talking sort of around the campfire after the event in Denver. I think Sergio was the one who's saying, do it local, make your difference local. You can actually make a difference and have your voice heard. And if you get a bunch of people doing it locally, eventually, the small waves add up basically, and then a bigger wave might happen. But I think that's sort of my big theme for this year, right? Is, make your voice heard locally, basically. So
that was such a fun day, by the way. I'm so glad you guys put that together.
More to come. Hopefully more this year. Hopefully more this year. So
yeah, that was a fun event. And thank you. I mean, like literally that's what I'm wanting everybody to do, because I'm talking to a lot of people who are at that point, and maybe they don't have the same amount of numbers of people, but who cares? If you can get some people together who are that passionate about it, this is how it starts. Have a conversation, then reach out to David, Stephanie, me, anybody that, because all of us are listening, other channel creators who know some things are listening. I mean, there's people who will and have always talked to me. Like if I'm like, hey, I have a very serious question, and they're very honest and they write me long responses. They take that time. It's pretty amazing if you actually step into the ring, especially when it matters, like it matters right now. There's a lot of, I mean, like I was mentioning the DOL rule change. Yeah, that might not affect all of us, but that's going to affect a lot of freelancers, self-employed, all these kind of, there's just so much going on. I feel like everybody needs to, and ask us if you're just so lost. You're like, I don't know where I'm at with my state. Where do I start? I'm happy to help you start. Like, okay, dude, start here. Let's look up what your state has going on, and then, hey, let's have you email this person, like you should be emailing these people. Why don't you get some drivers, get together with them, buy them a cup of coffee, something like just get buzzes going. Because if people are able to write emails to their congressman and say, listen, I can't make anything in the gig economy, I want to be an employee. Well, 95% of us don't want that. And it actually wrecks it for all of us. And I'm not just saying that. It just doesn't work for us. And so it's only the people who are pissed off writing in. We need to start being the people who want to change, but don't want it destroyed writing in. Like, I guess my point is, why are the people who want to be W-2 employees doing the work, but we who want to remain independent contractors, 95% of us aren't even equaling their numbers in doing anything? We need to change that. That's my point, or that's my thought. I take it how you want, but there's no reason 5% should be outweighing the 95% on what we want to.
Yeah, no, I think that's a good point. And so much of that is that the conversation, when the conversation starts being about classification, the companies win. And so they actually really like to feed that. Like DoorDash sent some of their sort of like mercenary drivers, the Dash Roots people to the Capitol a few weeks back here. And like when one of our organizers approached them, it was kind of like, hey, like you're a DoorDash driver, me too. Like, what are you here for? They said that they were here to oppose a bill that was going to force the companies to classify them as employees, and that they didn't want that. So like, I think like sometimes too, when we're talking about like the classification shift, people having so much having so much airtime, so much presence. Like, I don't think it's even genuine, to be honest. I think it's it's highly suspect. I don't know for sure, but it's highly suspect that that's who's taking up so much airtime, because we know it's not actually what most drivers want. But it's very convenient for the companies, because if they can make people think that's what they're doing, so you got to be shrewd. But I think I think your take on this has been really helpful, Steve and David, both of you, because we really need to think far beyond like traditional labor organizing. Like, there's still a place for it, and then some. And I think that event last summer was so important for kind of bringing together like these disparate camps of people just trying to get some justice for ourselves, and find a path forward that we can build consensus around. And that's exactly what those kinds of events are so great for. So I hope we have another one. And I have fond memories of just kind of sitting around drinking Colorado beer with you guys and talking shop.
Hey,
Well,
2024.
and before I sign us off here too, I gotta say, like, you actually had quite an opportunity that a lot of places might not get. You got to talk to gig workers who were in town from around the country. That's pretty a unique perspective too. Like, a lot of people might just hear from, like, a New Jersey congressman might only hear from New Jersey. You got a very unique perspective, and so did Senator Priola. Because we had people in from New Jersey, and you met Kim's side money plans, and you met a lot of us that are all over the country, and so that's pretty cool.
Yeah.
But I want to thank, obviously, David, as always, absolutely, Stephanie, thank you for making the time today to talk to us, because I know that we had a good show. We had a good amount of people watching, but I know it'll be seen on replay a lot too. And I think it's important that people hear this, because overall, David and I have said this, we're not like sitting here patting ourselves on the back 24/7 going, oh, yeah. But it was a win. This summer was a win. We put something together that showed that people do come together. And I think it awoke some people's voices. Now it's just, everybody needs to know your voice matters. Make your voice heard. So make it heard. I used to hear these kind of things, and I'd be like, so please, when you hear me say this, don't think that. Like, I've learned it. Your voice is as heard as you make it. That's right. Fair?
That's right. I love it.
So, I mean, if you want to make it loud, make it loud.
Yep. And Steph will take what we call a tiny win from last year, and she's going to make it a giant win for the state. So I'm excited for that. So
yes, absolutely.
So yeah, absolutely. And I will end with that. Stephanie, thank you for everything you do. I know this is not an easy fight, because again, guys, she goes up against, like, I grew up in big tobacco era. It's basically that. She's going up against those type people who just are so evil. They just aren't even willing to listen. They're just like, whatever. So to do that and to make changes is big. So, thank you, Stephanie, for joining us, and thank you for talking to us today. And if any of you guys have questions on the replay, please put them in the show notes below, and I will put the links to the bills that Stephanie was talking about, as well as her website and some other things, into the show notes, so that, again, if you're watching on the replay, or if you're watching now, just give me like an hour and I'll get it all populated. You can come back and see all the links. But we really appreciate everybody for watching, and we'll see you on the next stream. Everybody, be good, earn smart, and be safe out there, and be good to people. Peace.
Thanks, everybody. Thanks for